Hello, everyone else. I'm going to go ahead and get started. With these Zoom meetings, people seem to just, join in when they get available. Hi, Gabby. Hi, Mr. Bot. How are you? Thanks for joining me tonight. So I want to go ahead and get started just because I want to keep this condensed to the 1 hour time frame for sure, and just to be mindful of everyone's time. So I do want to go through just a quick housekeeping. This presentation, I believe, has about 85 slides, something crazy. Yeah, 83. But don't worry, I'm not going through all 83. I just want to touch on a couple key concepts today. If you have not received a copy of the How Many Works books that comes with this, just send me an email. Actually, you could just put your email address if I don't already have it, and request a copy from me so that I can get one to you. But you don't need the book for this masterclass. And that's one thing that I'm really proud about, because the presentation itself has a lot of screenshots from the book. And then as others join in, I know had a couple. I try to keep these workshops pretty small because I want to be able to engage with everyone. But if you can, while I'm getting started and while I'm about to go through the presentation, go ahead and type in the chat box what made you join tonight's workshop. What made you go ahead and sign up? And out of all the things you could be doing on a Thursday evening, what made you want to take advantage of this workshop and spend this hour with me? And as I get started, for those who don't know me, my name is Shantae Moore. I am a certified financial educator. I have over 14 years of experience in the financial services industry. So I am a licensed financial professional, but one thing that I really like to focus on is education first, because I find that when people are educated, they're actually able to make better and informed decisions when it comes to their finances. So yes, I'm licensed to help you with life insurance. Actually, September is Life Insurance Awareness Month. I'm licensed to help you with investments. I'm licensed to help with college savings accounts or setting up your will or trust. But again, I want you to be educated in making those type of financial decisions for yourself. And that's why I'm hosting these master classes, so that folks get an opportunity to get that education. And then again, if you want a copy of the book that goes with this presentation, just send me a message and with your address, and I'll be happy to mail a free copy to you. As I go through the presentation, if you have any questions, go ahead and type them into the chat box. I'll try to address them. If there's something that's not specific to the presentation, or if it's a little too detailed, I'll let you know to actually connect with me offline. I want to make sure to offer myself as a resource to everyone, so that not only that you get this information, but that you actually have a resource on how to implement this information as well. So is my volume okay? Can everybody hear me okay? I'm like right near my air conditioner. So if you can't hear me well, just let me know and I'll switch to my other microphone. But let's go ahead and get started, because there's a reason why everyone joined this presentation. And I just want to, I want to kind of give you a crash course into how to better manage your finances. So again, this is called the How Money Works Masterclass Part 1. This is where you're going to really learn how to stop being a sucker when it comes to your money. So again, I'll be your financial educator for your next hour or so. And, I just want you to know that financial illiteracy, it starts here. When we talk about being illiterate, it's meaning, can you read? Can you understand concepts? And it's very important that we become financially literate. One thing I want to go through in the book itself is that we do have a cast of characters. You'll get to see these folks. They come from the How Many Works book. Everyone has, a favorite or two. Mine is actually Zoe. She's like a young college student. She's like trying to figure out her way in life. But the point of these cast members is that they're going to show you that there are no stupid questions when it comes to your finances. So please feel free to take notes. And again, for those who are just joining, if you have any questions, go ahead and type them into the chat box. So the first choice that you have as we begin this course is really, really simple. Will you have the mindset to change from being a sucker or to move to thinking like the wealthy. And the fact that you joined this class tonight, it's a choice that you're right on. You want to think like the wealthy. And the one thing that you have to think like the wealthy is that you actually need to have the knowledge and the mindset. And that's what you're going to get from today's class tonight. One of our country's founding fathers, Benjamin Franklin, he once said that an investment in knowledge, that it pays the best interest. So I salute you for taking the time to learn one of the most valuable skills that you can develop, because I promise you, you will learn something tonight, and you're going to be glad that you did go ahead and join on. So comedian W.C. Fields, he once said that it's morally wrong to allow a sucker to keep their money. And of course, he was kidding. It does, however, prove one thing, that if you don't understand how money works, that you can end up the butt of someone else's joke. But for you, that stops today. And so I know the word sucker, that it can sound pretty insulting. And that's really not the best way that you want to describe someone who can be taken advantage of, though, because they don't know how things work. And not knowing how money works, it really does suck. It can suck up your time, it can suck up your freedom, it can even suck up your income. And all of that does suck. And so there's an old saying that you probably heard, what we bring about in your financial reality will largely depend on how your mind works when it comes to money. So in today's masterclass, in part one, we're going to cover these 5 steps, these 5 basic concepts and strategies. Again, I truly believe that each is fundamental in learning and understanding when it comes to your finances. That way you can make financial decisions confidently, you can make them quickly. I meet with so many folks who are trying to do things on their own, and they don't know what they're doing, or they don't have the proper guidance. So today I'm actually going to give you the things that you should be looking at, and to give you some guidance on how to keep yourself on track. So today we all know how devastating a global medical crisis can be. I mean, we're dealing with an ongoing pandemic right now that no one saw coming to hit us the way it did. If you would have told me about 6 months ago that we would have been dealing with a medical crisis with the coronavirus, I would have never seen it come. I never would have guessed it. I don't think any of us would have expected anything like that to happen. Now, not knowing about money is the equivalent to the #1 economic crisis that we have right now, and it affects over 5 billion people in the world. And this is when we talk about when people are being illiterate when it comes to their money. And the financial devastation that this has caused is immeasurable. The financial industry, they really don't want to be happy that we're committed, our company here is committed to actually changing that. So again, I talked about literacy, having competency, having knowledge. If this was 1920, there would still be millions of adults in our nation who could not read. Public education of the last 100 years, of course, has changed that. And our How Money Works class is public education in regards to financial literacy. So with this course, we're going to teach you the building blocks to earn, to spend, to save, and invest your money. Just like reading, when you know how money really works, it really will change how your financial story ends. And when you heard me say that there's over 5 billion people in the world who are considered financially illiterate, you probably wonder, well, again, what does that mean? And it references the shocking results of a recent global study that our company did, which says that only 30% of people in our world are considered financially literate. And the study used a simple money quiz to reveal that a vast majority of people all over the world, on all these countries, they just weren't able to answer these questions correctly. And this class here will teach you how to answer those questions and many more. And that's the reason why I teach, because I want people to be able to answer those questions, but so that they can walk away financially literate. And I hope that's exactly why you are here. So let's talk about our great America country, the great U.S. nation. And our nation, surprisingly, is not any better than any other countries in the world when it comes to financial literacy. It's actually the #1 economic crisis in America. And you could see that was exacerbated by the effects of the pandemic. We know that almost half of Americans, they don't have more than $400 to cover a $400 emergency. People are barely making their student loan payments on time. And thankfully, our current administration has extended that through the end of the year so that you're not having to make student loan payments and not having to pay any interest. And that student loan debt that's a whole nother presentation that I'll probably put together for you guys sometime. And Sarah right here, she's right. You know, when these numbers, they hurt families every single day. And it's very hard to process these stats, these statistics, these facts. You might be a part of these statistics, but again, you're here in this class because that's something that you want to change and taking this course. So according to the National Financial Educators Council, they also did a recent survey that says U.S. adults lost an average of $1,200 in 2018 because they didn't know what they were doing with their money. 1 out of 5 actually lost $2,500. So it's like taking your stimulus check that a lot of folks received earlier this year and just setting it on fire. So again, we want to be smart about what do we do with our money. And it's funny because only 21 states in the US actually require that you take one class on money in high school. You would think that from the number one thing that we all have to deal with in our lives, that we should at least learn more about it. But we know that these things are not taught about in school. You know, we learn about sex ed and everybody can figure that out, but why don't we learn about our money? Almost 50 out of 50 states teach about sex education, but we do not learn about financial literacy. I know I'm in the state of Illinois. The state of Illinois is not one of those 21 states. I don't think actually Indiana is, or Wisconsin, or Iowa. I don't think none of our neighbors are actually one of these 21 states that require financial literacy or finance. And, you know, most of our kids think a personal finance course would benefit them. And it's really hard to find one. I mean, if you try to go on Google and find a financial course, it's really hard to find something that's unbiased and that's actually strictly educational without trying to like sell you something. And that's why we teach this masterclass. And again, for those of you who do not have it, I'll be happy to send you a copy of our How Many Works book, Stop Being a Sucker, so that you can read this book. But again, you don't need it for the masterclass tonight. But again, if it's something that you want, contact me. I'll actually put my contact information in the chat box so that you can get a free copy of that book. So let's talk about the sucker lifestyle, because again, I'm not going to stop talking about how a lot of people are being suckers when it comes to their money. And it's really a trap about foolishly spending our money and then also saving it in low interest accounts, you know, month after month, year after year. So every couple of weeks, the cycle repeats. You know, you earn your income, you have extra trips to the grocery store, unnecessary spending, you signed up for another subscription that you're paying, you know, month after month. And most people, they know how to earn money and spend it, but that's it. You know, what about other options? And that's what we want to teach you about, how to actually break that sucker lifestyle. You know, suckers, they hand their paycheck over to someone else who builds their own wealth with the sucker's money. And wait till you see what the numbers look like, because I'm going to go through some examples. But little amounts, they can really add up over time. And actually, this is a snapshot from the book. So some of these numbers might be a little different since we've all been staying home. But I mean, we're probably spending less on clothing, less on ride sharing, less on coffee and events. Probably more on takeout. I know that's something that I'm a big offender of. I've been buying a lot of food out. We've been spending a lot of money on subscriptions and even maybe alcohol. You know, we're paying for things to have at home. And when it comes to having that sucker lifestyle, we also have to think about how does that actually affect our retirement. And, you know, just like in an airplane, you need both wings to fly, right? So Social Security and your 401k, if you have one or the other, those can actually make up one wing of the income that you plan to live on in retirement. And the other wing, that's completely up to you. That's supposed to be your personal savings. And if you hope to live on at least about 70% of your income, you need to really be serious about what you're putting away and how much money you're saving. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But in this particular instance, when it comes to retirement savings, you 100% want to work with somebody like myself who is a financial professional, who can help you decide what that personal savings number actually looks like, and figure out where should we actually save and put that money away. But it doesn't matter if you're close to retirement or not. We know that no generation is saving enough money. And remember, the older you are, the less time you have. So you'll need to put more money away. And here's an example of that. So we'll shine a big light on the numbers and the possibilities of you not saving enough money. So if you don't put enough money aside each month and earn a good rate of return, that's a key point. We'll talk about it tonight. It's not just about saving money. I think a lot of folks are actually pretty good for the most part at saving money. They just don't save it in the right places, which means they're not earning a good rate of return. They're not earning a good interest rate. So the main thing is that depending on your shortfall, your shortfall is right here where you saved up to this point, up to the tip of this green dot, but you actually needed much, much more money. And that shortfall is a big, big gap that a lot of people don't think about, because what that basically means is that if you retire without having enough money saved, you can actually find yourself going back to work, one, which we see a lot of people doing that. Like you see a lot of these Walmart greeters, they're not there because they're bored. They're there because they don't have enough money to live off of. Or you can see people needing to live with their family members or their adult children. And we want to help you to retire with dignity and to retire and be able to stay retired. So here's what it looks like when you save enough money. The gap is closed. You've reached your goal. You know how much money you need to live off for the rest of your life, and you'll actually have reliable income because you saved the necessary amount and you got the best rate of return necessary required to reach your savings so that you can actually live your retirement lifestyle. And there could even be money left over to leave legacy to children. How does that really sound? And this is again where you want to work with a financial professional like myself or someone who's licensed to help you with these things to figure out what your numbers need to be, because everybody's situation is completely different. It doesn't mean just because your best friend who's in a cubicle next to you does something that it works for you. Your numbers are totally different, and that's something that I would be able to help you figure out if retirement is your goal right now, to determine how much money you actually need to save. So as Steve Sebo said in his book, How Rich People Think, and he's actually one of the co-authors again of the How Money Works book, he said the wealthy think differently than everyone else. Suckers, they actually accept their situation. Their thoughts about money center on fear. Their behavior around money centers on foolishness. The wealthy, even though they have the same reality, they're also living through this pandemic, they choose an alternate mindset. The wealthy, they see money and their future very differently. They gather as much knowledge as possible. They think about money with excitement, and they see a bright future. They see, wealth and opportunity ahead of themselves. So now that I've just harped on why we need financial literacy, let's talk about some very powerful concepts. I feel that, again, once you learn these concepts, you'll be surprised about better decisions that you can make when it comes to your financial situation. And the power of compound interest, our first subject here we'll talk about tonight. So Albert Einstein, he called this the seventh wonder of the world. And basically what it is, compounding is the interest can earn in addition to the interest your savings can earn, or interest on interest, as Zoe here puts it. So compound interest basically leverages the power of exponential growth. So I like this little story here. Is from the book about John D. Rockefeller, who was one of America's self-made billionaires back in the Industrial Revolution. And I'll just tell you the quick short version. So Rockefeller, he lent $50 to a farmer, and at 7% interest when he was a boy. And when the farmer paid him back, he earned that $50 back plus the $3.50 in interest. And during that time, if John D. Rockefeller didn't lend that money, he would do work on his own. And if he went out and worked on his own, which was to hire and dig up potatoes for 3 days, Rockefeller would have been paid $1.12 for digging up those potatoes for 3 days. So he looked at that $1.12, and then he looked at the amount of work that he had to put in to earn that $1.12. And then he looked at what it took for him to earn that $3.50. And then that's when John D. Rockefeller decided that he wanted to make his money work harder for itself. And I like that story because when we think of that lesson, that's something that you really don't want to forget. We have to remember that you decide. You either work for your money, limited by your time. We only have 24 hours in a day. So I don't care if you make $100 an hour. The most money you can make is $2,400 for that particular day. Or you can learn how to make your money work for you around the clock without limit and without you. And this is by the power of compounding interest. And Rockefeller, he went on to say that he had ways of making money that most people had no idea about. And we're about to let you in. I'm about to let you in on some of his secrets. So first of all, there's a difference between simple and compound interest. It is very, very substantial. One stays the same, and then one actually grows and grows. So to see the difference, we'll actually look at two different examples of $1,500 growing over at 9% over 50 years. So with the simple interest, the $1,500, it grows at the end of that 50-year time period to $8,250. So not much over such a long time. Then with compounding interest, remember your interest grows on top of the interest, on top of the interest, it just keeps growing and compounding. So with the compounding interest, the $1,500, it actually grows to $132,777 in the same number of years. That's 16 times more money. And then you'll notice on the graph how the curve, it just gets steeper and steeper in the later years, because that's actually when your growth will take off. You won't see the growth very much at the beginning. You'll actually see the growth in the back end on the later years. So again, that just shows you how to actually be a little patient. Albert Einstein, he also said that compound interest is the greatest mathematical discovery of all time. And he thought about a lot of things during his lifetime, and he put the power of compound interest right up there with his famous equation, E equals MC squared. And I wanted to show you an example. So here's an example of how saving monthly with compound interest could really be a game changer for you. So first of all, the interest ends up being way more than the amount that you actually saved. So the interest in this example is 13 times what you saved alone. So here, this is where you see Rockefeller, he understood this. He said that earning interest, which is your money growing on top of each other, the interest that you earn growing and compounding, that's how you create wealth that your savings alone cannot accomplish. And now that you're starting, as I kind of go through this, I just want you to start to try to get the hang of this. You might have a pretty good guess whether $50,000 one time or $500 each month becomes more, which becomes more over a 45-year time period. If both accounts earn 9% interest, which one do you think will actually earn more? So let's look at here. So the $500 per month, it actually ends up outpacing the one-time sum of the $50,000. So even though TJ, he saved more over time, his account passed in Sarah, in this example, after only 18 years. The tortoise actually beat the hare. Slow and steady can win the race. So a couple things about that is that, a lot of times when people are trying to save money, they think that it could just double, that it could just triple overnight. And that's not the case. It actually takes time for your money to actually grow. So I always tell folks, you don't want to have realistic, you don't want to have unrealistic expectations. Just be consistent, save that money over time, and it will grow, even though you might not see the growth in the beginning. And the return that you make, that's really a big difference on how that story can play out. And here, let me show you a couple examples so that you understand what I mean. So let's just look at the following growth curves. Let's say someone saved $178 from month to month from ages 25 to age 67. And they had different returns, and they obviously created very different results. Most people really don't understand is that's why they choose the most wrong places to actually save their money. It's very important to make sure that wherever you're saving your money, that you're getting consistent growth. And that's something that I specialize in helping my clients with, is helping them to make sure that they save their money in the right places. Just because you're saving $500 a month in the bank doesn't mean that might be the smartest decision for you. You might be better else saving that money in another type of account. And even though the amount per month and the time are the same, the only change really is the rate of return. So I could say, you might be person one who's earning 1% interest here. I probably will find an account that earns 9% interest or more. As you can see, the more interest that somebody is earning on their money, the greater their money grows. And it's substantial. It's a huge, huge, big difference. And one thing that I tell folks is that you really don't want to focus on safety, because I think right now, especially with the pandemic, a lot of people are scared to invest their money. They're like, I don't want to invest my money. I don't want to put it into anything aggressive. I don't know what's going to happen with the stock market. I'm just scared. So I'd rather just put it someplace safe like the bank and just cross my fingers. Now, when it comes to focusing on safety alone, and if you choose to ignore the rate of return that you earn, that can really be a costly mistake. Wealthy people, they don't think like that when it comes to their money. They want to earn as much money as possible and have it working as hard as possible for them, so that it can grow. Now, I tell people, you might have those reservations just because you're not educated and just because you don't know how financial products work. So again, that's where getting some professional guidance, you can actually learn where to save your money by taking on the least amount of risk. You can invest in the market with taking on a little bit of risk, so that it can actually grow for you. I tell people all the time, saving money in the bank, that's not a place to actually grow money. It's actually a place that you end up losing money over time. So I want to go ahead and go on to the second topic again. I'm kind of rushing through this a little bit because I wanted to get done in the 1 hour. Again, for anybody who joined late, if you have any questions, go ahead and feel free to type them into the chat box. I'll try to answer those as I continue going through the presentation. So let's talk about the second concept that I really want to go through tonight. And it's called the time value of money. And again, when we talk about saving money and investing money, a lot of people don't really go through these concepts, but these are so foundational when it comes to understanding how money works. So one thing about the time value of money is that once you have that time gone, it's lost. You can never get it back. Time is absolutely one of our most precious commodities. Just think about it. How long do you have left to pay off your home? How long do you have left to pay off your car or your mortgage, or to send your kids to retire? Or to send your kids to college or to retire. You really need to know how much time that you have left to reach these goals. Why? Because it forces us to value the time that we have left. Now, there are 3 ways that you can leverage the time value of money. You can start now, save regularly, and be patient. I talked about that a couple slides ago, is you really want to have patience when it comes to building and accumulating your wealth. And starting earlier, it's always a good idea. Now, don't think, just because I'm younger, what Shantae is talking about doesn't relate to me. That's totally not the case. But saving and starting as soon as possible, starting right now, starting today. People tell me, when's the best time to start saving and investing? Right now, because once today is gone, we don't get that back. The time doesn't come back. It's always a good idea, and it can make a very significant difference. So in this case, on the screen, I'm showing people who are saving money between the ages of 22 and 30. So if you're younger on here, if you're a young adult, this is perfect for you. If you're saving money between 22 and 30, that's actually better than saving money older in age when you're between 30 or 67 years old. It's actually $110,000 plus better, and you don't actually put away as much money. They don't have to need to do so. So, and this is a common sense principle to understand, but it's ignored all of the time. The longer you wait, the more money that you have to save to hit your goal. The whole point is that you don't want to wait. And here's a picture of the numbers that it breaks it down by age. So for each million, a lot of times people say, if I had $1 million, I'd be wealthy, I would be happy. So let's look at, okay, what does it take to actually accumulate that $1 billion? So let's assume that, I'm not going to be, you're a certain age, pick out your age on here, but whatever you're putting your money away, you're earning 9% interest that's compounded monthly. So remember, your money is growing on top of each other. We're looking to retire by age 67. Again, find your age. If you're 30, then you would need to save $282 a month from age 30 to age 67, and you would accumulate $1 million. What if you're a little older? You know, I have a lot of older folks that I work with. And I'm not saying old, I'm not trying to be Asian, so I apologize. But they're closer to retirement. They're closer to wanting to live that want to kind of life versus that have to kind of life. Let's say you're 55. If you want to retire by 67 and have $1 million in your account, you need to save over $3,800 a month. And for most folks, that's not realistic. So I tell people all the time, you know, you don't want to wait. You know, I hear stories all the time. Well, Shantae, I want to set myself up and I want to get a house first. And, oh, I want to pay off my car, or I want to pay down my credit cards and then I'll save. Or I want to wait till my kids go off to college and then I'll save. Like, there's always something that's going to come up in life that could potentially stop us from trying to save our money. I would just say, just do it. You know, life will always happen. Something will always come up. Do not delay. Don't wait until after you hit these, you know, imaginative milestones in your head to think that, okay, now you're in a position to save money. Because if you do that, you definitely will hurt yourself in the long run financially, and you'll make it a lot more harder on the back end to reach these goals. And I'll just say one thing about this, and I have to harp on it a little bit because this is the biggest mistake a lot of people come to me with. A lot of my senior clients, a lot of the ones who are already retired, you know, the number one thing that they tell me, and Shantae, I wish I would have started saving money early, like in my early 20s, because now I'm 70 and I'm 75 years old and I don't live the life that I want to because I did not save money. They always tell me, had they known these things, had they started saving when they first started working, it would be so much better off in the future. So you want to do things now so that your future self can thank you, to say thank you for saving this money for me. So again, now might be a good time to start applying these principles and just see what it looks like. You know, write down your age. How much money do you think that you need to save from the previous slide? You know, what happens if you wait 5 years? You know, how fast can 5 years go? I remember 2015 was just like yesterday and it's already 2020. You know, everyone really needs to know how much money they need to save so they can start working toward their goals. And I'll tell you this, you know, sucker-minded people, they never think it's a good time to take care of these things. Again, the wealthy, they're totally different. They get started right away. The wealthy always have a get started as soon as they can mindset, because they think in the now. They don't think in the future. They think about now, if not sooner. You know, that's how they actually build their wealth. So let's look at one of my favorite concepts called the $1 Million Baby. And it kind of just like switching gears a little bit. But I love this. And don't worry if you don't have children. This applies to think of your own retirement, but it's built around protecting and saving money for our children or even your grandchildren. I have a lot of grandparents that I work with, and we implement this concept called the $1 Million Baby. So let's look at an example of something that most parents or even grandparents, they dream about. If you have children, or even if you plan to have children, you know, you always want them to have better than you, right? I know that I'm a mother. I have 3 children. I lived a very, very humble, you know, beginnings and growing up. I didn't have a lot. Everything that I have, I worked hard for. And I know that who I am and doing what I do, I want to give my children a better lifestyle than what I had growing up. And that's something that's really important to me. So in this example, you know, this is an example of reimagining how parents can leave a legacy for their kids. This $1 Million Baby strategy is really a strategy that applies that compounding interest concept that we talked about, along with the time value of money concept that we learned about just a moment ago, and learning how to transfer that into creating wealth for our children. You know, only 20% of children will receive an inheritance. I know that I had no inheritance coming in whatsoever, but my children will have inheritance. And it's probably really even lower than 20% now because so many people have faced so many challenges in the first half of this year and in the first half of 2020. So if you want to give your children $1 million, let's say at their retirement, not like when they're born, but when they're ready to retire, which one is actually more likely for you? So you either give them each $1 million in cash when they're adults because you've actually saved $1 million, or you develop a plan at a fraction of that amount for each child when they are young. So it's, again, you either save and accumulate $1 million somehow miraculously, or you implement by saving a fraction of that amount and let that money grow to accumulate to the $1 million. So let's talk about a couple things. You know, when we talk about retirement age parents, it's really important for them to leave an inheritance for their adult children. And especially a couple of realities is that with seniors living a lot longer, almost all of their expenses, if seniors have any money at all left over, a lot of their expenses are to pay off a lot of medical bills, long-term care. And the reality is that they generally won't have any money left over to actually leave an inheritance to their children. And since it's so hard to actually leave an inheritance, why not use the greatest financial asset that your child has, which is actually time? They have an entire lifetime. We're talking about, you know, newborns, young children, babies. They have an entire life of that time to where you could actually take advantage of that. We can actually take the power of compounding interest and using that 67-year time frame and actually growing our money for our children. And so the $1 Million Baby, it actually leverages three simple money concepts. Again, the power of compounding interest, the time value of money, and wealth protection. And this is one of my favorite quotes. Nelson Henderson said that the true meaning of life is to plant trees under whose shade you do not expect to save. So again, you can use the money principles that you learned today to save $1 million for your child or your grandchild. And it's really easier than you think. So I wanted to go through a couple examples to illustrate how this can actually work for you. So in this example, and again, these are all 100% hypothetical, but in this example, so Dana, she's a mom, a very known professional woman. I think she's actually a doctor, this character. She has a young daughter. Dana says, you know what? I love my daughter. I want to save money for her so she can have over that $1 million in retirement. She actually takes $13,000 when her daughter is born, as a newborn. And she set that aside for her for one time, and she left that money there. On average, growing at an interest rate of 6.5% annually, that money grew from her being, putting in $13,000. So by the time that her daughter was 67, she actually accumulated over $1 million for her. So let's do something else. Let's kind of look at the difference in time. Let's say Dana said, you know what? I'll wait till after my daughter graduates high school, and then I'll start to save some money for her. A lot of parents might think that way. Her daughter, instead of, if she saved that same $13,000 and started saving it for her at age 18, you could see how much less that $13,000 actually grew to. This is at the same 6.5% interest rate. So instead of accumulating over $1 million because she, was wise enough to start that as a newborn for her, she waited 18 years. Again, so waiting that 18-year time frame made such a drastic difference on how much money she was actually able to provide for her daughter. We're talking a $700,000 difference just because she waited. Let's look at another example here. So Hector, he's like, you know what? I don't have $13,000 sitting around. Like Dana, she has money because she's a professional. Hector is totally different. He said, you know what? I will actually save $2,500 now. I could put away $2,500 for his son when he was born, again, when he was young and at birth. And then he said, you know what? But for over the next 4 years, I will save, $250 a month for my son. So that $2,500 plus that extra $12,000 over a 4-year time frame, he was able to actually still reach that $1 million goal. So again, you don't have to have all this money and just put in $13,000. Taking a fraction, I know that people do baby showers and birthday parties. I tell people all the time, do not buy my kids gifts because they'll play with it for like an hour and then it's in the corner somewhere and they'll never play with it again. Donate to their college fund, donate to their wealth accumulation fund like this, and you can accumulate hundreds and hundreds of dollars over time to actually grow that money for your child in the future. And let's say if Hector waited until his son turned 18, again, he said, all right, my son has graduated college, and I'll do the $2,500 now, and then I'll still do the $250 over the next 4 years. So because he, again, waited that 18-year time frame, again, he still didn't accumulate as much as he could have had he did it at birth. Again, another $700,000 difference. The same story of what happened with Dana. So one thing that we're working on right now is we are developing a calculator that will allow you to play with these numbers, because I know everybody doesn't have $13,000, everybody doesn't have $2,500, but a lot of folks are looking at you know, if you want to play around with the numbers and figure out how that could work for you, if you're on my email list, you'll probably hear about that coming out soon. So we are developing that. But in the meantime, if you're interested in doing something like this for your child, you should work with a financial professional, and they will be able to help you find, figure out how to invest that money until age 67, and how to find an account that can give you that 6.5% interest or more. Obviously not guaranteed, but there's plenty of ways that you can grow that money at 6.5% interest or higher. And that's where you want to have a financial professional help you. Now, if you think about this, what if 250 children who are born every minute, you know, and they live with their parents or grandparents? You know, what type of lifestyle would that actually create for a child, where by the time they're retired, they don't even have to worry about it? They didn't even have to save money on their own. So it's very important. I think that if this is something that you're interested in doing for your children or grandchildren, I'd be happy to connect with you and see how we could apply this type of concept to your family. And you know, now you see why we call it the $1 million baby, because we're looking at ways of how we can save $1 million for our children. And I'm pretty sure they would be very appreciative, right? Like if I gave my children all $1 million and said, hey, here, now you can retire, I'm pretty sure they'd be happy about that. And you know, that's a huge thank you. That's legacy planning. When I think about what can I do for my children, that's a true legacy planning. So once again, you know, the sucker-minded people, they leave it all for chance. You know, they say, well, hopefully my kids will figure it out. Hopefully they'll, you know, make their own money. They'll have to fend for themselves. But the wealthy, they're totally opposite when it comes to this mindset. Again, they think if I can start doing something now, no matter how small it is, I want to be able to do things for my children and my family in the future so that it's done. And, you know, that's just the difference. So as we kind of round out this last 10 minutes or so, I wanted to go through the last concept here, my favorite concept called the Rule of 72. And I want to close out the class with this particular concept because it's my favorite. I remember the first time I learned it. So my undergrad degree is in accounting. And I remember when somebody started talking to me about these things, I was like, what are you going to teach me? I know everything. I'm smart. I have an accounting degree, blah, blah, blah. I didn't know much. I never learned about these concepts studying for accounting and studying for finance at all. So imagine people who don't even have business degrees or economics or finance degrees. They probably never even taught or learned any type of financial concept. So again, this is really one of my favorite concepts to talk about. And it's basically a mental math shortcut that the wealthy have used for years. And I truly believe that everyone should know this, because when I learned it, again, it truly changed my life. And so basically what it says is that the Rule of 72 is a mental math shortcut to help you figure out how long it will take your money to double if you're continuing to save it in the account that you're saving it in. And again, you just simply divide the interest rate that you're earning and divide it into 72. And then that'll tell you how much time it'll take for your money to double. And again, when we think about the Rule of 72, I want you to think about it in two ways. This is how our money can either work for us. You know, when I say it's working, my money's working for me, this is meaning that I'm saving it, I'm investing it, and I'm earning interest. But the Rule of 72 could also work against you. And that's when you borrow money. That's when you have debt. So think if I have, you know, $10,000 in credit card debt, what is that interest rate divided into 72? And that will tell you how long it would take that credit card debt to double. So, you know, the Rule of 72 is like a double-edged sword. We either are using it to work for us or we are using it to work against us. But let's go through a couple examples here. So let's just start with a very simple math. You know, let's say we have our money earned. Let's say we have our money saving in an account that's earning us 1% interest. As you can think about an account that's earning that, it's probably like something at the bank, because the bank doesn't really give us much interest at all. 72 divided by 1 means it will take 72 years for your money to double if you keep saving it in the bank. Now, would anyone knowingly choose that option on purpose? You know, most people wouldn't, but you'll be definitely surprised. But keep that in mind. We'll come back to that. Let's look at a couple examples here. So let's say, as you can see, you find other places to save your money. You know, the better interest rate you get, the faster that your money can double. You know, at 3%, it'll double every 24 years. At 6%, it'll double every 12 years. At 9%, every 8 years. At 12%, every 6 years. You know, so as you can see, the more interest that you earn on your money, the quicker that it'll actually double. And here's another quick way to look at it in terms of numbers and doubles and how this can actually apply to over your lifetime. So let's say you are as lucky as Zoe here. She collected a $10,000 inheritance at age 19. And she was like, you know what? I'm not going to spend it. I actually want to save this money for long-term needs and try to double it as much as possible. So if we took that $10,000, let's say she was working with someone like me, I helped her find an account that gave her 12% interest. There are accounts out there that can do that, not guaranteed, but plenty of accounts can do that. That $10,000 over time will actually accumulate to over $2.5 million. So the bottom line is that every double, it counts. It really, really does make a huge difference. And just remember the question. Remember I was talking about that 1% example. Now, why would anyone choose to, you know, double their money every 72 years? Well, it's because they don't know how money works. They really don't know where else to save their money. There's almost $10 trillion sitting in banks, in money market accounts, and savings accounts that actually average 0.1%, 0.10%. You know, and that's just a fraction. You know, when CNBC did a review of our book, the How Money Works book, a few months ago, they one of the things that they pointed out, you know, that this was one of the things that they pointed out, and they were like, you know, why, that's crazy. Why is there so much money earning so little? $10 trillion earning over 1%, earning 1% interest. But let's look at what banks actually average. Banks actually average 0.09% interest. So actually less than that 0.1%. 72 divided by 0.09 is 800 years, almost 800 years. You're talking 720 years for your money to double. You know, that's by the year 2820. As George says, his great grandchildren would be thrilled. So again, these people are not happy about how long it'll take their money to double. And just so we're clear, you know, let's just make this very clear. You know, the same place that gives you that 0.09% interest, you know, that's at the bank, right? Don't banks also issue credit cards? So, you know, you can save your money at the bank, but you could also take on loans when it comes to the bank. So, the banks, they'll pay you 0.09% on your savings, but they'll actually charge you 16% interest on your credit card for you to have money with the bank, which means that their money will actually double every 4.5 years. You know, banks aren't stupid. They're not stupid at all. They know that people will willingly enter into these type of agreements because people will say, oh, okay, yeah, just give me less than 1% interest on my bank account, but I'll take a credit card from you and pay back 16% interest. And that's why the subtitle is called How Money Works, Stop Being a Sucker, because you need to know how money works today, not tomorrow. You need to know how money works today. And I'll just clarify, I'm not saying that banks are bad. They're just, again, like I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, these are not places that you actually want to save your money and think that you can grow and accumulate wealth. I don't use my bank for those purposes. I use it to deposit checks and pay bills, and that's it. All of my other savings, all of my other wealth accumulation strategies are held elsewhere and not at the bank. You know, and it's funny because at the bank, you know, when you go up to the teller and you write out your deposit slip, what do they have like right there outside the glass? They have a little bowl of suckers, right? What do they call the suckers? dum-dums. Like, aren't those the only suckers that they use at the banks, dum-dums? Because they know, I mean, it's funny to me, but it's because they think that people are so dumb to actually keep putting their money in there. Again, I'm not trying to call you dumb or stupid, but it's just the reality. Like, banks are not stupid. They know that people do these things all the time. So one thing that you could use the rule of 72 for is that just to figure out if you're currently saving money, really just think about, again, what interest rate am I accumulating? Which interest rate am I earning? Or if you have a goal, let's say you're 35 years old and you want to retire by age 55. Now you know that, okay, that's 20 years. How much interest rate should I be earning on my money? 72 divided by 20. Let me actually pull up my calculator for that. I'm not great with numbers in my head. So 72 divided by 20 means that you need to earn at least 3.6% interest to reach that goal. And that's really not that bad. If you have a shorter term goal, maybe you want to send a child off to college in 5 or 10 years, then you'll know that if you have a 10-year time frame that you need 7.2% interest on your savings. So again, that's something very, very practical. Whether you work with me to help you find those accounts or not, at least you know the interest rate that you should be accumulating or trying to earn on whatever your investments are or whatever your savings are. So again, use that rule of 72 to determine, is the money that I'm saving, is it earning a good interest rate? How long will it take that money to double? Or if I know that I have a goal with a certain time frame, what should be the goal of the return that I need to earn on that money? So again, I love that. When I first learned that concept, it was very mind-blowing. And I hope that you took some notes from that. Again, if you don't have a copy of the How Money Works book, it's all in the book. There's a whole chapter on it. I'll be happy to send you a copy of that. So again, this is not the time to be sucker-minded. This is really a time to apply the rule of 72 to your finances. And that's really how wealthy people stay wealthy, is because they actually take these concepts that I talked about tonight and they apply it to their finances. So as I wrap up for the last couple minutes, don't log out just yet. I just wanted to conclude today's course. So a couple of these things, first and foremost, when I go through principles like these, you might have or might not have actually learned them prior. And a lot of times they'll just bring up more questions for you. Just like some of the questions that you have here, should you use a bank account? What other options are safe? Shantae, if you don't like the bank so much, where else can I save my money that's safe? Should you refinance a loan to get a lower rate? What can I do to actually double my money quicker? This is where you really want to work with a financial professional to help you answer those questions for yourself. And these are things that I would be happy to offer myself as a resource to you and just to discuss these things with you one-on-one, so that you can get those questions answered, because a lot of times people don't have resources. I pride myself on at least telling people like, hey, I can help you. I can look at your situation and give you some guidance. So I want to go into the chat box. How much money is required? How much money is required to retire? That's actually a really good question. I don't look at retirement as a big lump sum amount of money that you need, because some people might say, oh, if I had $1 million, I could retire. Well, if you had a lifestyle that could afford that $1 million, that might actually be the case. But the way I determine how much money folks need to retire is literally based on their current living expenses. So we want to have enough money to pay for the roof over our head, whether that's rent or mortgage. We want to have enough money to pay, our living expenses, paying for, gas and food, and if you had an auto loan at that time. So the one thing that I look at is to say, well, how much money do you think you'll need to live off on a month-to-month basis? Let's say it was $5,000. Then my job is to actually figure out, okay, where can we save and grow and invest your money so that you will earn $5,000 every single month in retirement from that growth and from that investment. And that's also considering Social Security. Like, I would say if you're at least 50 or older, you probably have a good chance of getting Social Security. Still, for those of us who are a little younger, I'm not depending on it. Hopefully it's there. I'll cross my fingers, but I'm not depending on it. That's even considering Social Security. So if you have a $5,000 a month need, your Social Security might pay $2,000 of that, which means that I only need to help you save to make up that $3,000 difference. So the way that you would structure your investments is to determine in the distribution phase, when I'm starting to pull the money out, will it be that $3,000 that I'll need? And again, that's sitting down and making out a plan and figuring out, is your 401k enough? Will your 401k give you that $3,000? Will your pension do that? Do you need to save more money outside on your own? So we're right at the 1 hour mark. If anyone has any last minute questions, feel free to go ahead and type it. I'm actually going to type in a way for you to connect with me to schedule a free consultation. So just for you joining me today and taking this 1 hour out of your evening, I want to offer you an opportunity to have a 30-minute phone consultation with me. Talking about the things that we talked about tonight, or if there's any other, maybe you have some investments, or you want to do a will or a trust, or if there's anything in your personal finances that you would like to have me to help you with, go ahead and schedule the phone call. Again, it's 30 minutes. I'll call you. I won't take notes. It'll be completely confidential, but I'll learn more about your situation to see how I could be a resource. Mr. Bott, again, that's a personal question. Connect with me on the phone and we'll talk about how you can save that $100. So again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining me tonight. You all be blessed and have a good night.